It's been a tough financial year for employers of labor and workers, but despite this, the organized private sector, government and workers are still striving hard to ensure that they exceed expected targets. Hello and welcome to Labor Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. Let's take a moment.
The Industrial Global Union Nigeria Council has called on the federal government to initiate sustainable policies and promote industrial development in the country. The union sought government intervention in initiating such policies. It pointed out that there were so many policies negatively affecting industrialization in Nigeria. The chairperson of Industrial Global Union Nigeria Council, Babatunde Olatunji, gave this position at a press briefing in Lagos, following the union's findings during familiarization visit to the Dangote refinery project at the Lekki Free Trade Zone. Ahead of the 1st of January 2021 takeoff of the African Continental Free Trade Area, labor leaders are of the view that Africa must industrialize to achieve this without relying on international markets.
There shall be massive food production, while cash crops shall equally constitute raw materials for our manufacturing sector and for exportation. Nigeria urgently needs to industrialize by involving good economy. The Nigeria affiliate of Industrial Hub Global Union applaud Alhaji Aliko Dangote effort towards industrializing Nigeria and by extension Africa. We recommend him for Industrial Development Ambassador Award.
It's better for us to have investment patriotism. We should be able to invest in our country. We should be talking of how are the African developing Africa. I think Aliko is developing Africa through industrialization. And I think it's in our best interest to support that. In that project also, there is already 1,100 kilometers of pipelines, deep sea pipeline, which will be taking gas directly from Niger Delta. Am I communicating? To fire that plant. And it's also connected to West Africa. This is one of the biggest investments taking place in the world today.
We cannot effectively industrialize without power. Aliko Dangote is doing what he's doing because he has the muscles and he has the love for the country. If he has depended on the public power, Nigerian power, Aliko will not build any refinery. He first built a power station, 400 megawatts. After using what he wants, the balance will serve 5 states of the Federation. They are Oyo, Ogun, Osun, Kwara, and Ekiti. And all these states are under Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company. I want to flow along with my leaders for us to give support to Aliko Dangote.
Upon completion, the Dangote refinery is capable of employing 300,000 direct workers. Industrial Global Union represents 50 million workers from 140 countries of the world in the mining, energy, and manufacturing sectors.
Our concern as private investors, as private sector is that how can we have such looting going on for 20 odd hours non-stop, that every telephone call to the police and to every other forces were not responded. How come is that the police themselves were fighting for their own safety and to make sure their police stations were not being attacked and burnt? But these are the facts. So I am not blaming here anyone's lack of action, but I am just stating a fact that this has really happened. It has opened up a lot of questions in the investors' minds and everyone's mind, that how can we be so vulnerable that 20 hours of sheer looting of thousands and thousands of people just walking in and just taking whatever they could do, and we could do nothing about it.
Scale, the medium scale. So now for them to have not been able to work during the crisis means that a lot of dependence, more dependence, is on the salary workers. So it means the money that is not enough before, we are now spending it on more people. Most of the schools, we have to pay for the period the children are at home. We need to buy a new set of equipment and for the student to be able to learn online. So it has really affected all Nigerian workers. So I appeal to government. We have not seen anything seriously. There have not been any palliative to workers in Nigeria. The palliative may not necessarily be in the form of food, but we expect palliative in the form of tax rebates. We expect palliative in the form of our contributions to all contributions that it is mandatory. Maybe for once, government can say for 2020, don't bother to pay your part of the contribution of the PENCO, of the pension PFA contribution, and reduce all our taxes, and make sure that even for those of us that have children in school, there should be a sort of assistance to public institutions. Now going back to hospitals, there should be increase. As of today, it will surprise you that only 3% of Nigerians that are using the health insurance. So I expect Nigerian government to increase the number of Nigerians that are on the scheme, so that a lot of people could go to the hospital and be treated almost free.
It's a fact, not just Nigeria or Africa, all over the place. With the NSAS, protests and all that, it's a pity innocent people actually became victim of what started off as a very peaceful, because I saw it all, as a very peaceful protest, just trying to put their points across to government. Hoodlums were to join in. I saw it, I think, in my WhatsApp. Adeniro Gusoya, I couldn't believe it, because that's a shopping mall. I have a few friends who have their boutiques. Everything was down. I was actually crying, you know. So to answer that question, I think the government really needs to step in to see how they can help finance those businesses again, to be able to resuscitate what they were doing. So really the government needs to step in. So really the government needs to step in.
On the profile interview segment this week, I will be speaking with the Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, Dr. Timothy Olawale, tells me what the challenges the organized private sector faced in the year 2020 and what the projection will be for 2021. Take a listen. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
A lot happened in the year 2020, and there are lots of concerns, especially with the last briefing that the organized private sector had with the press, when it announced that about 5 trillion naira was lost during the NSAS protest, and what more could have been lost during the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes. What would be your projection?
Well, 2020 is closing. 2021 is being approached with hope. Government, in its wisdom, has laid some foundation with regards to policy decisions, which are positive. As hard as it might be, the issue of the regulation of the petroleum sector, which we had advocated all along, even though we can understand why government is approaching it in a measured way, is a decision in the right direction. The same way, the cost-reflective electricity tariff, which we believe has started yielding fruit, we've improved electricity supply is also a policy in the right direction. We believe with all these sound economic decisions, good foundation is being laid for a solid business environment in 2021. However, the cloud of COVID-19 is still hanging out there. It remains to be seen whether it's a pandemic that will be overcome in the first quarter of 2021 as been projected by some people with the second wave, whether the new strain of the COVID-19 is going to have more devastating effect like the old strain. All these are instances that paint pictures of uncertainty for 2021, which makes it difficult for you to prognose in absolute terms. However, we expect that 2021 should be better. The issue of violence, insecurity, which is also a very big issue, is not only for businesses, it's for the entire economy, for the entire citizenry. It's also very, very important. Government is doing one thing or the other about it, but we believe government could do better with regards to the issue of brigandage, kidnapping, and all this banditry. Once all these issues are attended to, 2021 should be better.
Okay, owing to the fact that you've said that security needs to be addressed and all,
Yes.
Recently there was a release that NECA sent to the public as regards the section 38 and 39 of the draft of the finance bill.
Yes.
Can you tell us what NECA's concern is?
Well, it has to do with unclaimed dividends in the bill. The assumption of the provision was that unclaimed dividends are going to be warehoused into government accounts, and the government will be able to tap into it for developmental purposes, not take it as in appropriate it. In other words, some sort of a loan. But what we are saying is that it is a misnomer, in that this money belongs to individual or corporate investors.
What will be the economic impact for organized private sector?
Well, we're already in recession, and we had said that it's not new because we had foreseen it coming. And we had said that for as long as Nigeria remains a mono economy nation, we'll continue to experience this once there is a shock in the international oil market. And that was why the diversification of our economy has been of top priority to us as organized businesses. And government has also embraced it. Once we are able to develop the solid mineral sector and other sectors of the economy, and we are able to rely less on oil revenue as a major source of income, definitely there will be a fresh breath for our economy. Because as it is, once there is any disruption in the supply of oil or in the prices of oil in the international market, definitely it's always a shock for Nigerian economy.
So what will be the solution towards this?
Wholesome diversification. Summon the political will to really diversify as if you have your very life depends on it. You have zero income from oil. Agriculture as well as solid mineral. If you can focus on those two, and turn around the economy to rely more on these two. And oil and gas just become some sort of subsidiary income base. Definitely you discover that we won't be experiencing all these shocks, especially once there is problem with international oil market.
Would you say that the government recovery plan is in order?
Well, like I said before, government are taking very painful decisions which became very exigent and very important. It may be painful, but it becomes necessary. Like the issue of deregulation, for instance. Nigerians are pushing back. The issue of electricity tariff that is cost reflective, Nigerians are pushing back, understandably, because of the social implication, especially in a country where you have a massive poverty in the land. But it's the way to go. Once government has really beaten the bullet, we expect that this critical sector of the economy will turn around. Power, for instance, is a commodity that is indispensable, that every Nigerian, corporates, individuals, household rely on for sustenance. Micro and medium scale enterprises thrive on even cottage power. So now that that decision has been made, basically the operators in the electricity sector to be able to deliver on their own side of the bargain, which is improved electricity supply, which we already seen, and the metering of all users of electricity, so that there is no issue of crazy bills or arbitrary bills.
Recently, the federal government ordered the reopening of the borders in the country. How would NECA react to this? Will it promote made in Nigerian goods? Would you think that this would also further aid whatever recovery economic plan that might be in place?
It's neither here nor there. The closure of the border was for a purpose, and we know it cannot continue in perpetuity. Now, government was expected to have taken action to ensure that going forward, the mileage it achieved through the closure of border is sustained. It remains to be seen whether that will be sustained. In other words, what are those things that has been put in place to ensure that now that the borders are being opened, smuggling is reduced? But all in all, it's a welcome development, because just like we have influx of goods, the same way we also have exporters from Nigeria that supplies basically, and I can tell you, most of the manufactured goods, especially food and beverages products that are being consumed in the West Africa sub-region, comes from Lagos area through those borders. And these businesses have been adversely impacted. So it's a welcome development for those exporters of goods. But like I said, the fundamental issue is the control of those grants that has been gained during the closure.
So would you say it would impact positively or negatively to the organized private sector?
We have a free, even if the borders are closed, the protocols in the ECOWAS sub-region says once you follow the rules, you now have an open border. Mm-hmm. The Free African Trade Agreement, which comes into force in January, also throws our border open. I think the most important thing is for us to do due diligence to ensure that we position ourselves to be competitive enough to also be able to play actively and ensure that we don't play second fiddle. So, all in all, it's supposed to be an enabler for us as a country.
Would you say that with the challenges within the year 2020, which one of them is COVID-19, which the world is still faced with, would you say that your expectations have been met as organized private sector, most especially when as it regards palliatives or policies that will support businesses?
Expectations has not been met. You know, many a times we survive on hope, an expectation that when there is life, there is hope, and there will always be a brighter tomorrow. The issue of palliatives for businesses, like I said in an interview in time past, most of the facilities that government had provided through the Central Bank of Nigeria are loans. And these are businesses that are already indebted through harsh economic circumstances. And they are wary of increasing their indebtedness. So most of them are not even touching those facilities with a long pole. What we had asked for are grants. In other words, bailouts, just like US and some other countries are doing. But we can also understand that government has its own constraints. In other words, there is limitation to government's funds.
So there was no tax palliative or tax holiday given to the organized private sector within the year 2020?
No, rather there were delayed scope, time frame for payment of taxes. In other words, it was extended. In other words, the timeline for payment of taxes were extended. You still pay anyway. So, which is also good. In other words, we were just given opportunity to recover reasonably and pay later. Deferred tax payments. So, but tax relief, no. What was promised through the National Assembly, the issue of payee, remains to be seen whether it will be implemented. And we did say then that it was a mirage, because you don't legislate on what you don't have control over. Payee is within the purview of states. So you cannot say that you are going to waive pay as you earn, which is not within your purview. So Federal Inland Revenue Service, which is a federal agency, cannot implement that.
So what is the future of an average worker in Nigeria? Are you seeing the possibility of more job losses, especially as we still struggle with the high number of youth employments that we are faced with?
As it is, I'm sorry to say, I don't want to scare us, but the future seems to be very bleak. And that is the truth. Because there are lots of issues that needs to be addressed that are still hanging in the balance. You know, government's policy with regards to employment, the issue of 774,000 jobs for all the local governments in Nigeria, which is now moribund, or which has not materialized. Even that, to what extent is that going to solve the issue?
Debt accumulation seems to be the order of the day. Finally, what do you think we need to do at this point in time?
When you run your recurrent expenditure, basically nothing. And that is why today you see ASU on strike, you see the medical people on strike, because the chunk of funds that should have gone into all those sectors for developing the sector are being used in servicing debt. And we are unrepentant. we are still incurring more. We are mortgaging the future of the future generation, and this is so unfortunate. Our advice is that we should find other means of funding governance. We should find other sources of raising funds. We should stop being wasteful. We should inculcate the habit of running government like our personal businesses. And that is when we'll be able to beat our chest and say, yes, we are responsible people.
It was an interesting conversation as always.
Thank you very much.
And that's all we can take on to this edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.